Maybe I have to make a game like this, honestly. Make a game like this, make it more simple. Then maybe a wider audience might get into it. I don't know. A stance-based fighting game, that'll be interesting. But then again, having just a game about stances already makes it difficult. The game is already very simple. Maybe. How much more simple you can make it? I think it can be done. I personally think it can be done. Literally 2 buttons to press to attack. No, I'm not talking about the controls. I'm talking about the system. I could literally tell anybody to spam those 2 buttons, right? And they still wouldn't be able to beat you. It's not about the front end, it's about the back end. It's all of the systems, the stances, the switch, the combos you can set up, different styles like Wing Chun, Drunken. You have to come up with that stuff by yourself. You need to know your style of fighting. That's why I like Absolver. It gives you a lot of creativity and a lot of liberty. But it's because of that, a lot of people also have a hard time playing the game. I think in game design, we call it spoiled for choice. When you give a player too many options, they end up being lost. It's the same reason why Team Fortress 2 is arguably a simple game, a simple first-person shooter, but it's also one of the hardest to play in comparison to many others. Because I can probably tell you to play TF2 and you could probably do it within like the first 10, like maybe in the first hour of the game, right? But to tell you to learn things like sticky jumping, rocket jumping, freaking knowing the map layout to the point where you can optimize your rush, all of that is very important to TF2 like at a competitive level. But most people will never care, just like how most will never see Absolver. It's the same concept. When you make a game this detailed, yeah. That's why I say this is why I like Absolver. It's depth. You find depth from simplicity. I can see that. I took the time to go through the choices slowly. I can see how newbies will get lost in the sauce if you will. Yeah. I'm already very confused on everything I'm saying. Like I understand the basic parry and attack, even more so on the mental side of fights. Yeah, no, that's why I like this game. It's a mental mix-up. You think about what your player is going to do. You have to read your enemy. You cannot just press a bunch of buttons and hope your combo hits. You cannot hope that the frame data works for you. No, you can't do that in Absolver. You can't. You have to think actively. And the thing is that it also looks cool because you can actually see the attacks, right? It looks like an actual fighting game. You see 2 real human beings fighting one another. And the movement feels pretty slick, smooth, like actual fighting. I mean, yes, there's every now and then there's like the moves, the glow cancel animation, and it looks kind of wonky at times, but it makes sense. You look at Tekken and a lot of like games that has animation cancels. It looks so wonky, like from 1 second you're doing this animation and suddenly you drop down to the ground. You got the route of how to play easy peasy? I guess. But to be fair, I have like almost 2 years of fighting games under my belt and I'm an analytical player. I analyze everything I play, no matter how simple it is. Most people get stuck on what to do because how purely meshing doesn't save them. Yeah, I said it. Well, I just want to grab. If you're gonna play a grappler, you must learn how to space. You must learn space control. That's super important. Once you can master that style, like spacing, you usually have an easier time overall. Spacing and patience, that's the main grappler style. And okay, going back to Dio, what Dio said, how purely meshing doesn't save them. That's the thing. Here's the thing. Most players, and I'm not saying this out of ill will to them, most people just don't give a fuck. Most people are unironically too stupid to play fighting games. And I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in fact in a good way, because it means that you realize that fighting games are not worth your time and you choose to do other stuff. I mean, and the best part about most fighting games is that you can't backdash forever. You can't dash forever. I love games that implements stamina the way Absolver does it. I don't know, it just looks very cool. It feels balanced, it feels swift, it feels smooth. It never feels like you're struggling, right? Like, that's what I feel when I play. Like okay, I'm not gonna lie, when I was... Right now I'm taking a break from Tekken because I'm very tilted by the game. A lot of people... I'm a very mediocre player. Super mediocre. So it's like... And I cannot get past a lot of things like mashing, and I just don't have the patience to lab it out. I really don't. So I'm taking a break from Tekken and then I'll come back like sooner or later. After gaining the knowledge, right, on how to do better in fighting games in general, I would say that I have the knowledge on how to do things, right? Every fighting game has the basic stuff. Like, it depends. Like, Street Fighter has strike and throw footsies. Very simple. You move back and forth, see who can get the whiff punish, whatever. Oh, you go into aggressively? Oh, sure, you can. You want the space? Okay, Hadouken. Simple game plan. No need to make it so complicated. That's why characters like Guile do it so well. Or even like Ken and Ryu. So basic. But it's when you look into the depth of it, like how do you apply those specific parts, put it together, and using that style to create your own style. And from that style, you become a competitive player. You cannot just hope that your character carries you. There are certain characters in certain games that will always play the same. Even in Strive, like Guilty Gear Strive, I would argue that most Giovanna players play the same. I would argue to a certain extent most of them play the same. I really don't think there's much depth to the character. It's simple game plan, keep the game simple. But it's how you use the simplicity that enforces how good of a player you are. I would argue, right, that if you can play a character like Shaheen, Giovanna, Ryu, not Kage, just Ryu, Mario, and all these kind of basic ass characters in high level, you are probably an incredibly good fundamental player. Because the fact that you can take basic tools and turn it into a strength is impressive. It's how they always like to say jack of all trades, right? Master of none. But the thing is that they never finish that sentence. Jack of all trades, master of none. But often more than not, better than a master of one. That's the full quote. Okay, I didn't say it exactly, but that's me paraphrasing. That's the more or less the full phrase. It's better to do everything well. Even then, doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, right? There are no really basic tools in Absolver. 1A and 6S. Yeah, exactly. No, that's why Absolver is such a unique beast. It doesn't have that quote-unquote basic tools that most fighting games have. That's why it's such a hard game to get into. Because you cannot mess around. You have to kind of... I mean, you can. But you kind of have to force yourself into it. Like, there's this Tekken YouTuber called The Main Man Sui. I'm not sure if you heard of him before. But one of his most important videos that I learned, right? Especially when it comes to any fighting game. You must be prepared to lose 100 games before even winning one round. Not one game, one round. You must be willing to accept every single fucking loss before seeing even an inch of progress. That is fighting games. If you wanna mess around, you need to actually be good at Absolver. Exactly. That's kind of how it is. It is quite unfortunate. Wow, GG.